Hi everybody, Benita here with your September forecast. And as usual, I am using the second edition of the Publishing Goblins Oracle Dice because I just love it so much. So, last month was quite something. I don't know how many of you were in the same boat, but I had forecast that there would be loss, there would be challenges, that there would be a lot to learn from it, and ultimately it's worthwhile learning. Well, that was quite the month. For those of us living with fire, there are people who've lost their homes, a lot of people who struggled with the whole experience, myself included, as you know, with breathing challenges. I also lost my dad on August 23rd. So August was pretty darned accurate in terms of the challenges that we would be facing and situations where we would have to deal with some uncomfortable matters, and so that was August. So let's see what we're going to get for September. So I'll start off with pulling a card to represent the month. And we're getting the Bearer of Boons. So that's a good card to get. And we'll see how it plays out with this. I've got all my die here in my beautiful set. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm just going to take them all out. And we're going to see how they land on the mat for September. So many die now because there's so many artists who've contributed to this set. All right, looking for September. All right, I'm going to do that again because there's way too many that all landed in the same spot. I don't think I was lifting high enough. Let's try that again. September, that's more like it. And some landed on the floor. Interesting that only one landed near the core. So that's going to be fun to see. So if they don't land on the mat, we don't worry about them. They're not part of the September forecast. And we're going to start off with our wonderful book here. Because there's so many die, we're going to go through them one at a time and see how they all relate. So we start off with the actions die. And we see if it made it to the table, if it's actually on the mat or not. Oh, this is really interesting. I'm seeing faces showing up here that I haven't seen before. This set is still quite new to me, but I'm actually seeing some die here that I've never seen before. So we do have the actions die, and it's a flaming sword, I don't know if you can see that, showing up under the past. So we're going to see how that relates. Remember last month there was a lot of stuff about having to deal with things from the past that were going to come forward. So, you know, it might be challenges in terms of your relationships. There were some difficult conversations to have. You know, for some of us, it played out like difficult conversations around death, things like that, such as I experienced, you know, having to process losing a loved one. For some of you, it might have been discussions, setting boundaries, different kinds of experiences that we were having this past month. So this month, the burning blade is basically, it's called the raise, and it speaks to the ease of raising something and starting again. Raising meaning R-A-Z-I-N-G, burning something to the ground and starting over. Kind of ironic that here I am, a Kelowna psychic, pulling the very first one has to do with burning things to the ground. So there you go. So it's about looking for meaning around it to understand its implications and uses. Is it a warning or a necessity? And so when we see it in the past, you might say that we're looking at it in this sense of what sort of things have had to burn to the ground to help you move forward. Did you burn bridges you shouldn't have? Did things burn because it was necessary? Contemplating what happened in the past and how it might be, how those burnt bridges might be coming up for you now. Are there things you have to repair, Or is it more about realizing that those things burned away for a reason and now it's time to really let go of them? So that's just the first dice. We're going to see where we go from here. And hi, I see Marilyn. I see Rima here. Hi, welcome. Thanks for popping in. Let's see. We're looking now at the Alchemist die. And let's see. Yes, it is on the table. And it is also in the past. This is the symbol. And it is the face of copper. So it's about passing control, gathering of energies. It'll gather the energy around it. So when it's found with other dice, it speaks to those dice being direct energies that you're absorbing for better or worse. So it's basically talking about, because we're still looking at die from the past, because we're just going through the die one at a time and seeing where they landed in the quadrants. And this one, the flaming sword for things being burnt to the ground, burning things to our foundation and starting over, that came up. Oh, thank you very much. So Sandy's saying she loves my shirt. This is actually a dress. It's a Betsy Johnson dress that I got through Poshmark. I just got it today and I'm loving it. So thank you. It's pretty wild. Yeah, so all this gathering of energies from the past, we're going to see how these die play out. There's several that are falling in here, including the Chaos die. So that's going to be interesting to look at as well. In fact, let's just skip forward to the Chaos die to see what face is shown up. The Chaos die is the only one that has different sides to it. And if it shows up in a reading, it really shakes things up. So there's an interesting little symbol there. I'm going to see where that one plays in. Okay. That is a weird little symbol. I'm trying to figure it out here. Okay. Broken time. It's like a broken clock. So it's basically saying makes no change in the reading in the way one might expect based on the other faces this die has. Instead, it introduces a strange quality to nearby dice. They're unlikely to come around when you expect them. This is to say nearby dice are coming around at strange times, in spurts or in a meandering long path, far after you'd need or maybe want them. So that's really interesting because it's falling into the past. We've already got the flaming sword, which is about, burning things to the ground. What connections have you cut away that maybe you should have maintained, or maybe you'll realize it's good you didn't maintain them. And copper is just heightening that. So far we're looking at situations from the past that are coming forward and affecting you now. All right. I love this set so much. Our next die is the Alley die, and it also shows up, and it shows up in the future, and it shows up as this really cool eye. All right, let's see how this one plays out. Truth. So truth is an open eye looking on at things as they are. It's not a secret. It's merely seeing what is in front of you without needing to romanticize or misinterpret. It's unique in that it really believes it can look without bias, but it can't. None of us can. Listen to its advice, see what it gazes on, but understand that sometimes the biases we bring to a topic, action, or event are as important as the event itself. So when we're seeing this, it's basically understanding things without the mantles we force on them, seeing things simply as they are. So that is showing up in the future. And it's interesting because in that particular quadrant, there's only one other die showing up. So this is going to unfold in a neat way. Now we come to the Attentions die. Let's see if this one's even on the mat. It might not be. So when I drop the die, they scatter, and sometimes some of them end up on the floor because they weren't supposed to be in this reading, and that's what happened. I don't see that one here. So we'll skip it. And the Autumn die, that shows up under Momentum, the energy carrying things forward into the future. And you can see it's a little scythe and a rake. supposed to be held up that way. I'm still learning these die. Okay, so this is called works. Works is that which we do to complete tasks of all kinds. It's also the knowledge that nothing will ever be done if you do not do it. It's time for action, even if the action is just the never-ending part of our movement in accomplishing always things to be done. So basically it shows under momentum, and I find it interesting that we have this dice, which is about seeing things as they really are, and above it is this dice saying, do the work. In other words, if you want things to change going forward in the future for this month, you're going to have to take action. You're going to have to do the work. It's not going to be handed to you. All right. The chaos die we've already taken care of. The elements die. And it does show up. Interesting. The face that's showing up for the elephants die is one that I've never seen before. The elements die is the one that I've never seen before. I love that because there's so many different faces, and sometimes, you know, something will come up and you go, oh, it's a first for me. So this one is also showing up in the future, and it is called wind. So it looks like it's showing a tree swaying in the wind. And it's basically saying it cuts through with a carved out crescent. It speaks to sudden movement, change, and flightiness. So it can mean people that are difficult to control or unexpected or about to leave soon. It characterizes anything that's fleeting and it's coming and going, arriving suddenly and leaving just as suddenly. So understanding the dice that it ends up near, it says sometimes wind picks up as incredibly strong, tends to do so in bursts, rarely sustaining. So it's showing up next to the eye and above it work basically is suggesting you're going to see that a situation isn't founded on a strong foundation. Just like we got with the past one saying there's, you know, burning things to the ground to start over. It's saying in this situation that's kind of fleeting, you're going to see the truth of it. You're going to see that it wasn't something with a strong foundation. It wasn't a solid situation, but you've got work to do anyway. So it might be, for example, a work situation where somebody lets you down, but you still have obligations, so you still have to follow through on them, even though that person proved not to be trustworthy. It might be a family situation where somebody bails on you, but things still need to get done. Now you know the truth of the situation. It doesn't mean you're not still having to be accountable for getting things done. Okay, we come to the fate die, which is also showing up under momentum. So this is the one that looks like a little jackpot thing. And it is a slot machine. It says it's a good omen of things to come. Trials and endeavors may be circumvented, unexpected financial support, being circumvented, unexpected financial support, winning on a lottery ticket. Basically, it's good. It says great luck is locked into this die and it moves with it. If it ends up in a corner with no other dice, it likely speaks to incredible opportunity or unstruck gold. In this case, though, because it shows up next to the work one, it says luck will be there for you, but you're going to have to work for it. This is not something where it's just going to come to you. So what we're seeing here in the near future for this month is a flighty situation. You see it for what it is, and you realize you have to take the bull by the horns, but if you do so, it's going to bode well for you. Hey, for all you know, if somebody bails on you, you get a chance to shine because you get to step in the forefront and take over the situation and make it work. But it is going to require work of you. It's not going to be just something that shows up for you. Okay, so now we have the Goblin die. And is it even showing up on the map? I don't think so. No, I think that one ended up scattering. I always like when the Goblin shows up. It's super cute. Okay, the Influences die. And that one does show up under Fated. So Fated basically means the things that are inevitable. And under Fated, we have this grin. And it says smile. At its best, it speaks to people trying their best, even if what they give you is useless. So what I get from that is that this situation where you kind of feel like somebody let me down, it's don't think nefarious, that there's a nefarious intention there. It doesn't mean anything was meant by it. It's not deliberate. It's just the way things worked out. This person is doing their best, so have a little compassion for them as well. The kindness die shows up under inevitable as well. And this one is, you see a stitch, a needle and a thread there. All right, so it's about a wound that's closed shut or a tear in a cloth sewn over the needle. In other words, it says to give stitches is not a simple act, it's a healing act. It takes time and dedication. It has faith, it'll hold and change and no longer be needed. All this matters when this die phase shows. Bear its weight. So in other words, it speaks to something that needs mending or healing. Remember how earlier in the reading I had said there's a situation where you burnt something to the ground in the past, and it's something that may have to be rectified. It's looking at, in this situation in the future, somebody lets you down, something doesn't work out, and you have to work it all out yourself. But it's about recognizing the person had the best of intentions and healing the wound, not continuing to harbor it. And that might mean that you contact the person and you work it out with them. It might mean that you just make peace with the situation yourself and go, okay, nothing was meant by it intentionally, but it did create a problem for me. I'm not feeling like I need to resurrect that relationship, but I do need to heal myself of what it created for me and let go and move on. It can very well be a situation like that. The longings die. That one show up for us. I think that one ended up on the floor somewhere too. Okay. The Chronicler of Choice, the Major's die. That does show up, and that's the only one that's close to the core. And the way that shows up, it looks like this, like a crossroads that we come to. So if it's read as a core, it says, when our path ends up at the core of a reading, it constructs the paths before the query, along with the difficult elements that arose that forced a decision to be needed. The path phase can visually and physically build this road. The paths on the die leading to the dice that start the journey and where the two roads lead in the core. In the core, these paths may likely lead to the quarters of the reading grid, so that all sounds super complicated. Basically, it's saying there's a road ahead. It relates to the paths we take in life and the choices we take from there. So to put it really simply here, what we're getting with this reading is we've had something happen in the past, we burned our bridges, and that situation shows up again in the near future where we have to clean up somebody's mess or take responsibility for something that they are not participating in, and it's coming to the realization they're doing their best. It's not intentionally meant to hurt us. We have to heal from that. It might be a healing where you work it out with the person. It might be a healing where you simply move on and let go because you need your energy for other things. So when I see that dice showing up in the core, it's simply saying there's a path you've been walking. Now, which direction are you going to go with it from here? Are you going to heal from it, or are you going to continue to hang on to the past? So that's what we see there. And the Mariner's die. Okay, that is showing up in the present. And what we see here is a bird. And thank you to everybody who's just showing up now. I really appreciate you coming in. If you've missed part of the reading, watch it afterwards. You'll catch the whole thing, and you'll be able to see what this month's reading is all about. So with the Mariner's die, the gull is basically a bird that flies and screams at you while it steals fish, fries, or whatever it needs to survive. So when it shows up in the reading, It's heavily affected by its placement in the grid. So it's showing up in the present. And that determines whether it can have a positive or negative effect here. So when we're looking at it, it's basically the face of being unabashedly yourself. This is who I am. This is how I'm coming in. We're going to see how it plays out with the other dice, because the other ones showing up in the present haven't shown up in the reading yet. And I see you, Biscotti girl, and Christian and Melanie. Thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. So the next dice we're going to look at is also showing up in the present. And I don't know if you can see this. It's kind of faint, but it's a butterfly. And so it's the Metamorphosis dice. And with the butterfly, it's basically understanding that this is not the end of your growth. It's a massive step into it. It should be loved and enjoyed. Spread your wings and show off a little if you want. You've accomplished something great. So what it's saying is, whatever you dealt with in the past, you're in a place right now where you're feeling really good and confident and positive about it. So from that place, remember in the future, in some way this person's going to let you down, or maybe you will discover that they did let you down. Maybe they're still in the past and something else shows up. But regardless, you now know the truth of the situation. And because of this situation of the present where you've worked on stuff, you have confidence, you're able to look at it differently. You're able to work through whatever you need to work through. Even if you were counting on somebody else to pitch in, you're able to work on it yourself and have compassion for them having done their best. So this is very positive, what we see happening in the present. Now, the obstacle dice. That one is it showing up in the spread, or did it end up on the floor? So when I drop the die, they go wherever they go, and if they don't end up on the mat, they weren't meant to be part of the reading. And at this point, I don't see it on the mat. I think that's one that went to the floor. The relationships die. Okay. So with this one, the face that we have up, that's what it looks like. It's also showing up in the present. And it's the alone die. It tends to stand alone. And when you're having this die, it's basically it's being alone, just yourself. It typically means imposed isolation. So it might be a case, for example, where maybe you didn't feel connected. If you really burned a bridge in the past, you might feel very isolated from this situation, even though it's going to come up for you this month and you're going to be working through stuff. You might have been doing a lot of this on your own or separate from the people you were affected by. So the spring die. That one shows up on the table, but just off the mat. We're going to include it just because it's just beyond the mat. And what you see here is this broken bowl. Okay, and it's showing up just beyond inevitable. So you might say it's an inevitable. Ooh, bad pun. I know, sorry. And it's the disrepair face. So basically things that we fail to take care of always wilt in this way from neglect. So it speaks to the things in your life you've let go and not given love and care to. So there's a couple of ways of looking at this in terms of this reading. Either you need to repair that relationship that broke down, or you need to work on how it affected you and do that healing work. Either way, it's not something to neglect. It's something that needs to be addressed. To move forward into October with fresh energy, with more awareness, you need to address this situation one way or the other. You need to make peace by either working it out with somebody or working it out with yourself. Okay, the suits die. Does that one turn up on the table? I don't see it. Okay. It's another one that ended up on the floor. The summer die. Okay, that is definitely here. It is also showing up in the present. So the summer die is about a goal. So it's up to the nearby dice to share what the goal is and if it's achievable or if it's chasing what it will cost you to go for it. So I find it interesting that we've got the bird and how it's about, you know, either a lot of energy or not a lot of energy going to something, but it has to do with the other die. The butterfly, that's all about that positivity. So the two together say this is a positive shift. You're doing it on your own, but it's your goal to achieve. So when we look at this, it speaks to the hopes we carry with us. So in the present, it shows a lot of work being done to nurture yourself, to heal yourself from the situation from the past. And that energy gets carried forward into having the ability to do the work in the near future on this situation. This feels very internally focused. You may be reaching out to somebody. You may be repairing wounds. You might be working through something that needs to be resolved. Or you may be working on it internally so that you're no longer carrying this. Either way, it's saying, get the work done this month to resolve this situation. Don't let it eat away at you anymore. If it's somebody you can make peace with and you know you should, get on it. And recognize that it was never ill intent toward you. It was just people being human and having their own patterns running that created the situation in the first place. If that doesn't seem feasible, make peace with yourself. Learn to let go of the situation, freeing up your energy to be present with who is in your life now, the people and the situations you're embracing now. Either way, don't let this gnaw away at you. So the winter die shows up in the past as well. And it shows up as this little cloud with precipitation coming from it. I know, super cute. So this one is, it says, snow is the face of curling into oneself to hibernate. And to know that the world outside of you is doing it too. So it's saying which things are blanketed or forgotten or misremembered. So in this case, it's suggesting because of the other die it falls with in the past, there's something that you suppressed. There's something you just tucked away, not going to deal with it now. It's sitting in your past. So again, when we look now at all the die that fell into the past, it's basically pointing out something that is going to crop up for you now, or maybe it already has and you're dealing with it. It's something that where you burn things to the ground to start over, but you might have suppressed them and hadn't really started the work of either healing from it yourself or working things out. Now you've done enough work to be present, to have the energy and the confidence to address this. Going into the future, it shows you really see the reality of the situation, and you know it says great luck comes to you if you do this work. If you go, fine, I'm going to do this work, I'm going to acknowledge the situation, I'm going to work through it, I'm going to come out the other side. And we've got two more die under fated to look at. So we have the wounds die, and that shows this little dude here. And this one is, it's called gutted. So the reading around this die gives you information as to what you're gutted about. It speaks to someone who feels so utterly destroyed, empty, often from a betrayal or a blindsiding and horrible surprise. Something where you didn't suspect the situation, but there it is. So that shows up under fated. So it's interesting to see the smile card, the smile dice came up under fated as well to say there were no nefarious behaviors here. Somebody screwed up and it wasn't intentional. It was just them running their patterns, but we feel gutted by it. So it's saying, you know, that kind of hurt, it happens in life. It's part of our growth process on some deep soul level. We came here to grow. So these situations will happen. So somehow I missed one dice. Might be the Alleyman dice. So we're going to scooch back here to that one. Yeah. Yes, that's the one. And we're going to see. So this one is called scavenge. So you see somebody picking something up. And that one's also under fated. Scavenging is necessary for survival. It's basically finding garbage and turning it into treasure. So when we're looking at that under fated, what we're seeing here is this is a situation that you're gutted by. But you realize the person didn't have bad intentions toward you, and therefore you're going to salvage from this what you can. In every situation, we can grow from it, we can learn from it if we choose to. We can feel sorry for ourselves, we can beat ourselves up, or we can say, okay, what am I learning from this? And we have the healing dice here. Just beyond it, we have the that broken bowl that says, you know, things decay if you don't work on them. So there's a very strong message in the dice this month to say a situation coming up from the past that you either ignored or pushed away, you burned your bridges, it's coming up to be healed now. And this person may either be showing up in some way and letting you down, or something from the past crops up for you and you realize, I have this work to do. Nobody can do this for me. I have to take over the situation and get on top of it. And that's where the core saying you've got a path to walk from here means you can either continue to go on the path you've been on and lose a lot of energy thinking about that person and not working on it, or you can make a choice. And the choice this month is you either work with that person to rebuild that bridge, or you finally let go and you work on healing your own wound. But either way, it's saying if you want things to change in September, and the good luck one says it could be a really significant change, then you need to do this work one way or the other. You need to move forward on your path one way or the other. So I did pull the card, the Bearer of Boons. Just going to find it here in the book so that we can see how it plays out. Where is the Bearer of Boons? Right there. Okay. Okay, so it presides over the kindness die. It says it's not a friend or foe. When it arrives in a reading, it speaks to a gift of goodness, a friendly hand, a shoulder to cry on. It's a positive omen of good things coming. And so in this way, it's a gift. So in other words, the overall reading is saying this is a positive thing. You have this to work on, but if you do work on it, you're going to be in a better situation. And what makes the most sense here is your energy is going to be freed up. Energy is precious. If we want to stay healthy, if we want to have the energy to do our jobs well, to engage our lovers or our friends, we need to have the energy to build the relationships that are going on in our life right now, to build the connections, to be present in our work, in our spiritual journey. So this month is very much about realizing you've come to a crossroads. You're either going to resolve this situation from the past that you burned to the ground, said I'm starting over, but you never really started over because you're still carrying that stuff. You're either going to turn around and go, okay, I got to reach out to that person. I have to make this right. I have to work this out. Or you're going to go, you know what? I've been hanging on to that long enough. It's time I let go. It's time I freed up that energy for the life I'm living now. If this is somebody you can't see yourself bringing forward into the life you're living, you need to consciously work on letting go. And the die are very clear about this. It's acknowledging that even if this person really hurt or betrayed you in the past, they were just running their patterns. It wasn't a conscious thing. And so it's about forgiving them, letting go, accepting that that's in the past now, and healing the wound so you can move forward. If you're still cogitating over something that happened to you maybe decades ago, you're giving that person your energy. energy that's not going toward the people and the situations you're pursuing in your life now. So this month is very much about getting that energy back. Looking at the situation, however you want to resolve it, but resolve it this month. Resolve to move forward one way or the other. If you need any help with that, reach out to me at spiritkelowna.com. I can help you find your core patterns that keep you stuck in this situation and help you shift those patterns, which will then shift how you look at that situation so you can finally let go, move on, or resolve it in some way. But this is the month to do it. I have a sneaking suspicion. October, November, they're going to be really pivotal months for us, and we're going to need the energy to address whatever's coming up then for our growth. So this is the month to gather that energy by resolving this situation one way or the other. I will pop in at some point on the weekend and do some mini readings. I'll post on my Facebook when I'm doing that. So if you would like a mini reading, come on in at that time on my Benita K. Summers Facebook profile, and come and post your questions, and post that you want me to pull a card or post a question. Make conversation interesting, and I'd be delighted to connect with you. If you can't wait, or you simply want a longer reading, you can find me at spiritkelowna.com. I work in person. I work on Zoom worldwide. I'd be delighted to do a reading with you and help you move on with your situation. Thanks very much, everybody. I look forward to seeing you. Bye for now.